This is Arab Talk on KPOO San Francisco, 89.5 FM. This is Arab Talk with Jess and Jamal. I'm Jess Jamal.
And this is Jamal Dajani.
Jamal, we have a lot of things to cover today, from the Arab world and Middle East to what's happening here domestically. But before we speak a little bit about the challenges and the confrontations that are going on in Egypt right now, I think it's time to honor the late James Khashoggi, the late Saudi journalist who was murdered a year ago this week at the Saudi embassy in Turkey. He was brutally murdered at the hands of just a vicious regime in Saudi Arabia. And for me personally, it was really difficult to see that CBS and 60 Minutes this week had the audacity to allow MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, give him free rein to kind of spew his hasbara, I would call it Saudi hasbara, about what he did or did not know. And he claimed on 60 Minutes that he knew nothing about the murder of James Khashoggi, but at the same time he took responsibility. It was truly a big fail on the part of CBS and 60 Minutes.
Well, I mean, we can talk about this because, and then we'll go back and talk about Egypt and the other news. But you're absolutely right, Jess. I think he was here on a PR campaign. And Saudi Arabia actually hires, they have I don't know if they still use the same PR company in Washington, D.C. So rather than going through the whole denial process, they were told, listen, don't go through the whole denial process, take responsibility. And that's why, he basically said, I was in charge and I take full responsibility, but I didn't know anything about it, which we know doesn't add up. So the whole idea, because in any scandal, we know kind of from past experience, be it a politician or a drug company or an oil company, the worst thing that you can do is to deny when you know that there was something, a crime was committed, or you had a major incident there. So he actually was following kind of their suggestions.
But let's not forget, Jamal, he denied it for months and months and months. Even though we had intelligence communities from all over Europe and even the United States who were monitoring calls, there were calls from the people who murdered Jamal Khashoggi who were calling back to Saudi Arabia. The Crown Prince was intimately, there's no doubt in anybody's mind, especially the intelligence community, that there's no doubt that MBS was intimately involved with this. But what I don't understand, I mean, we know the kind of regime that MBS is responsible for. Why is 60 Minutes giving him such a platform to spew out this kind of despicable narrative? And it's just, 60 Minutes has historically actually given lots of despots, I guess, the opportunity to spew this, right?
Well, it's a big story. I mean, what happened to Saudi Arabia, and I do think that he pretty much, just like any other politician, he intended to be on 60 Minutes because this is your opportunity. You either sink or you succeed in defending yourself. And remember, last year was a big disaster. Remember the conference that Saudi Arabia hosted,
right,
and everyone was running away from it.
Of course.
From corporate America, dozens of the top Wall Street and business executives canceled their plans to attend that investment conference in Riyadh, nicknamed, if you remember, Davos in the desert.
In the desert,
and
yeah.
it was hosted by MBS.
What a joke, man!
And yeah, so he's basically has come back here. They probably got a new PR company to whitewash basically the crime that they've committed. Not to mention Yemen. I mean, to me, Khashoggi is a horrible thing, and believe it or not, there are hundreds of journalists who have disappeared in Saudi Arabia. We don't know their names. I mean, we know that throughout the years, nobody raised a
That's
peep
right. That's right.
talking about these journalists because they didn't work for the Washington Post.
That's right.
If Khashoggi didn't live in Washington, D.C., and wasn't high profile and didn't have the Washington Post behind him, you would not even know his name.
Right, and that's a good point, Jamal. And not only have hundreds of journalists disappeared in Saudi Arabia, let's not forget that probably hundreds, if not thousands, of the opposition to Saudi rule are also disappeared or are in prison and being imprisoned for exercising their, their right to kind of criticize the regime and what they're up to. I want to say a little bit about Yemen because it dovetails with what we're saying about Khashoggi and this. And I think I'm gonna quote your term, the medieval kingdom of Saudi Arabia, because I think it's a very apt definition. By the way, we're going to connect this with Donald Trump later because there's a connection between MBS and Trump. But what is happening in Yemen with Saudi Arabia, UAE, and what I believe and what the many international observers believe are legitimate war crimes that are being committed in Yemen right now, there is speculation that the United Nations may take up this issue of potential war crimes in Yemen by the Saudis, by UAE, and let's not forget who is supporting Saudi Arabia right now and the UAE in their vicious war against Yemen right now. It's the United States and some of the European countries. So the mess in Yemen, which nobody talks about anymore,
that's right,
is something that we will continue to follow here on Arab Talk. Speaking of difficult regions, Jamal, and again, you're not hearing any of this on the mainstream media anywhere. People don't realize that there have been demonstrations going on, active, big demonstrations going on in Cairo against the Abdel Fattah al-Sisi regime, which is amazing to me, Jamal. Two things. It's amazing to me that it's not covered here, and it's equally amazing that some large numbers of people actually feel courageous enough to take to the streets in Cairo and demonstrate against the regime of Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. It's really amazing. What are you picking up in the Arab media?
Well, I mean, we know September was probably the biggest crackdown
right.
For Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. And according to Amnesty International and other organizations, that his security services have rounded up more than 2,300 people following a series of anti-government protests, and that's happened mostly in late September.
Right.
Those arrested included 111 minors that we know of, aged between 11 and 17, according to Amnesty International. They've issued a statement last Wednesday about this. At least 69 detainees face charges, including membership in a terrorist group. And so there was, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, some people have been referring to it as the Cairo uprising and other different names because these demonstrations did not only happen in Cairo, but in other major cities like Alexandria, demonstrating people who have been demonstrating for the very first time, really, against the regime. And just to give it a little bit of a background for those who have been following it, it was like a rare show, really, a rare show of dissent, which erupted in September in response to a call from businessman Mohamed Ali, a building contractor who says that his company used to carry out projects for the Egyptian military. And of course, this businessman, Egyptian, very wealthy businessman, he currently lives in Spain, and he describes himself as living in Spain because he's a self-imposed exile.
Right, he's afraid for his life.
Yeah, he's afraid to be his life. So in a series of widely watched videos posted mostly on Facebook, Twitter, and social media, he has been accusing al-Sisi and his aides of squandering millions of dollars on vanity projects despite rising poverty. And, there was an interview with al-Sisi, if you remember. Someone confronted him, reported about building these palaces, and al-Sisi said, well, I think it's an American journalist, I'm trying to remember. He was saying, well, where am I going to receive heads of state like Donald Trump, And then when they were saying, the country is basically very poor and you're surviving on financial aid. So what happened, of course, this is not new, right? Just I'm talking about people who are outside Egypt, who have been critical of Egypt. It's not something new because you have a lot of the Egyptians living in diaspora,
right,
like Mohamed Ali and others. Because if you're in Egypt, it's very difficult, right after basically the arrest of Morsi, the security services went on a cleansing mission.
That's right.
Getting rid of mostly the Islamic Brotherhood. We don't even know the number of people who were arrested
or killed
during that period.
Right.
So that was pretty much described as the reign of terror, that period of time after the fall of Morsi and then I wouldn't say the election, or the appointment of al-Sisi.
The anointment.
The anointment of al-Sisi.
Yes.
So people have been very afraid.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially in Egypt, to say anything critical. And also because, the country has been through a lot of things. First, Hosni Mubarak, then you have the revolution, then you have Morsi, and people were dissatisfied because he did not know how to manage the country very well. And then all of a sudden he's accused of all kinds of charges, including treason, and then ending up in jail, dying in jail, by the way.
Literally dying.
And then
in
all
jail.
of a sudden, you have the military, the return of the military, embodied by al-Sisi. So there have been critics from the outside, and one of them was this businessman, Mohamed Ali. And I think what happened is that the Egyptian government and al-Sisi, they undermined the effect of this businessman. They were kind of dismissing it. Initially, they were saying, this is just like one person.
Yeah,
and
but
it's nonsense.
But how many people took to the streets, Jamal? 2 points. How many people took to the streets? So we should hear about that because these demonstrations were huge. And then the second question, which is interesting, and maybe you can comment on this. This is a businessman. This is not an avowed Muslim Brotherhood devotee or person who's committed to Mohamed Morsi's political group. This is someone that would be considered more in the kind of elite, leaning toward Mubarak and Sisi's kind of, base, if you will, to use a term that we use here in the United States. So what makes this interesting to me, and I think interesting to political analysts all over the Arab world who are interested, is this is a new kind of break with al-Sisi and his regime right now.
Well, there are many factors. I mean, like I said, first of all, people have been disillusioned. They've seen the country kind of like the return of the military. They've seen the new programs, these are according to recent statistics, actually official statistics released in July. It shows that 33% of Egyptians were living in poverty, up from 28% in 2015 and 17% in 2000.
Right.
This is on the economical level. Other estimates put the figure much higher. And so analysts have been saying that the 64-year-old leader's popularity has been going down in recent years because of the austerity measures and soaring poverty rates. Because remember, al-Sisi came not only to bring security, because that was first the selling point. We have to bring security back to the country,
Right.
but we are going to make Egypt the best country in the world, right? It's going to be also jobs, economical development.
Building the middle class.
And prices have been on the rise.
Right.
The cost of living
Inflation is out of control.
is on the rise, and nothing has happened to improve the lives of Egyptians as far as their income. I mean, look at the pound, the Egyptian pound, man. It's like worthless these days.
It is.
And so it's costing a lot of money for Egyptians. I mean, you still have Egyptians who are living in Cairo, which is not a cheap city, under $300 per month.
A month.
Yeah, per month.
Yeah.
Maybe even less than this. And so they haven't been seeing improvement. So I wouldn't, and then they're seeing certain people, by the way, only just like when it was the case under Mubarak, only a very small segment of the society benefiting.
So Jamal, how big are these protests in Cairo?
September was very unique. Like now it has subsided, but September was very unique because it's not just about protests in Cairo. There were a lot of sporadic protests all over. And they took everyone by surprise, which took everyone by surprise, including the regime itself. Now the regime is prepared for these, and many people, as I've mentioned earlier,
Right.
have been arrested, more than 2,000 of them, right? The figure puts it at more than 2,300 people that were rounded up, right?
Right.
So now we are talking about you have at least almost 70 people face charges, including membership in a terrorist group, and you have a lot of people who are running scared. So is this going to repeat again? We don't know.
Well,
But nevertheless, that was very unusual.
But here's the thing. I'm always big on predictions, right, Jamal? You know that. This does not bode well for President AlSissi. I think for people to have the courage, no matter how many people show up to protest, let's be clear, and our listeners should be clear. Mohamed AlSissi is a despot. Egypt is basically a police state. Journalists disappear. The opposition disappears. The Muslim Brotherhood has all but been totally crushed. For people to actually protest in any way, shape, or form in Egypt is an act of really supreme courage. I don't think this bodes very well for Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Just to remind our listeners, Donald Trump likes two leaders in the Middle East very, very much. Well, three. ABZ, MBS, and Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. I think there's even some weird thing that Donald Trump said, and I'm sorry if I'm paraphrasing it. He referred to al-Sisi as his favorite strongman or his favorite dictator or something.
Favorite dictator.
Yeah, it's like, this is not a joke, man. I mean, you're talking about the most populous Arab country in the entire Middle East, North Africa. You're talking about 33% of, millions of people living below the poverty line. We're talking about declining employment, increasing poverty, and people are going to the streets. This cannot be a good situation. Does it feel like to you, Jamal, that we're approaching a similar situation that preceded what happened to Hosni Mubarak?
No. I see a hint of it, and for multiple reasons. I think, of course, remember, the thing about Egyptians have a lot of patience. Remember how long, before they went out to the streets to demonstrate against Hosni Mubarak.
20 years.
More, right? So they're willing to give a chance, with Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. I said after the imprisonment of Morsi, in fact, people said, well, we need now the military to protect us again because we had lack of security, we had mayhem, the economy wasn't good. And he initially, when he came into power, he came through a referendum. It wasn't an election. He just was pretty much the only candidate, and say,
Right.
okay, are the people, do you want this person to be your president? They said, yes, we want him because we had a very bad experience with his predecessor, even though they didn't give, the only one they didn't give a chance to was Morsi.
That's right.
And so now, in the first couple of years after the revolution, 2-3 years, people thought that things have been turning around, that they can walk, out in the streets, and they felt some security because no one likes to to watch a mayhem, and lack of security. But now they're getting disillusioned. They're getting disillusioned because of the economy, but because of all these people who are like I said, they've underestimated the effect of Mohamed Ali and people like him from outside.
Yeah, because this is a different opposition, Jamal.
So, yeah.
This is not Muslim Brotherhood opposition. These are businessmen.
Yeah, so these demonstrations, even though they were swift and they took everyone by surprise, they're not big.
Okay.
They're not big. I mean, I was in Egypt during the revolution. I've covered the election of Morsi. I was even in Egypt when the referendum on Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. And I saw the masses when they gather at Tahrir Square, when you have more than 1 million persons right in the center of Cairo, when the bridges are all shut down from traffic, nobody can walk, nobody can, drive anywhere. This is nothing like it, because I looked at the videos. Yeah, you had demonstrations. I don't know, are they in the thousands, in the hundreds? And to have an effective revolution or have an effective change, it requires millions in Egypt to go all over. So we're kind of far.
But we'll follow this.
From this.
Yeah, we're going to. You're listening to Arab Talk at KPOO at 89.5 FM in San Francisco. This is Arab Talk with Jess and Jamal. We're broadcasting live from San Francisco. You can also stream us on the kpoo.com website. And, of course, we're live streaming on Facebook right now, where you could check us out at Jamal Dajani 2, where there's a Facebook live stream. So we're gonna switch, I think, to domestic issues for a second.
How can we escape it?
No, but are you talking to me?
You're starting to sound like Trump.
Well, the reason I brought up that Robert De Niro quote is because in the this happened just yesterday, when Donald Trump was at a press conference with the Finnish president, and a journalist, I believe from the AP, had the courage to ask Donald Trump a series of questions, but primarily focused. The specific question had to do with what Donald Trump was intending the Ukrainian Prime Minister Zelensky to do when he asked him to check out Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. Like, what was his intention? What did he want to see happen? And, of course, Donald Trump didn't answer the question. He said, this is a hoax. This is ridiculous. This is a witch hunt. In fact, in his bombastic way, Jamal, he said, this is the greatest hoax in the history of the United, the same, bombastic things that he says. So the journalist, to his credit, did not back down and asked the question again. Trump looked perplexed, looked at the journalist and actually said, "You talking to me?" Just like a gangster, just like a mobster would ask somebody that he felt challenged by, and then started to bully the journalist into asking the president of Finland a question. It was, Jamal, I think, someone who feels, my interpretation, using, the lens that I look at these things with, it looked like someone who had been cornered. It looked like someone who had been under attack. It looked like someone who had lost his way and who clearly feels and sees that he's backed himself into a corner.
I think I see it actually more than this. I think he's unraveling. I mean, not that he always kept his sanity or he was in control of things.
Which he
but
wasn't.
This past 48 hours, and there is a whole bunch of actually statements that he said bunch of tweets showing you this, his psyche, the way he's been on the defensive, reacting. So he's being very frustrated, even raging against the media. I mean, the way he has been addressing the media, he's been raging against the media, raging against his political rivals in a stretch of few hours, and I'm talking maybe 48 hours, plus or minus.
Right.
He called the democratic impeachment efforts, and I don't think we can say it on the word, he uses BS.
BS.
But he spelled it in caps.
Right.
I mean, for the President of the United States.
The full word.
The full word. Got into a verbal altercation with a reporter, that's the report, during his the press conference, and delivered like nonsensical claims about his political rivals. His anger was very visible. You look at it. I mean, this is not something we have to kind of guess, analyze. Just go back to the video and look at his face. His face was turning like, I mean, you're going to say he's people describing orange, but this was like flush red, Jess.
Right.
I looked at it. I actually froze the picture. His face was turning flush red. His voice was raspy and kind of, he was irritated. His gestures were animated. You know, and these are some of the statements he was saying, you know, so we're not making this up, so I wanted to put these quotes. Nancy Pelosi and Shifty Schiff, who should resign in disgrace, and Jerry Nadler and all of them, it's a disgrace what's going on. So he kind of like paints the Speaker of the House, calls
Adam Schiff.
Shifty Schiff.
But isn't that kind of anti-Semitic, Jamal?
It is.
I mean,
and they should resign with disgrace.
It's
Calling
really anti-Semitic.
Jerry Nadler, all of them, they're calling they're all a disgrace. This is, of course, that's when the president he was at the White House event with the Finnish president by his side, right? This wasn't even. You know, he had a guest. He's an international guest of state.
Head of state.
Head of state, right there. They've been trying to impeach me from day one. I got elected. I've been going through this. Now this is the victimhood for the past 3 years. And then, you know, got really irritated.
So let's just...
Calling, again, I'm going to go back to Adam Schiff. I mean, this is, I don't know, he just got under his skin. Calling him a lowlife. I don't think I've heard this in any kind of rival debate, whether presidential or political between to call him a lowlife. He calls the Democrats the do-nothing Democrats. That's his reference now to the Democrats. The do-nothing the Democrats should be focused on building up our country, not wasting everyone's time and energy on the BS word again, which is what they have been doing ever since I got overwhelmingly elected in 2016.
Okay, so before we go further, I think it's important to put some factual information on the table for our listeners. There's a lot of information. And Jamal, we have to keep in mind that the Trump tactic is to, you know, obfuscate, is to get people to not pay attention to the facts, is to wave his hands, to use vulgar language, to attack, so as not to pay attention to the facts that we do have. Fact number one, he released his own transcript with Prime Minister Zelensky, and in that transcript, he attempted to shake down the leader of another country in Ukraine, where he said, and there's, you know, the evidence to back this up is clear and unambiguous. President Zelensky says, I need these Javelin missiles. Trump says, I need a favor from you, though, which means you want something, I'm only going to give it to you if you give something to me. The thing that he asked for was an investigation of the Biden facts. So using the power of the presidency for his own personal gain is really the thing that's in question here, Jamal. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's today or even late last night, Donald Trump says China should investigate Hunter Biden and Joe Biden.
That's right.
And he said the Bidens are, and he says this, I have to quote it because it's so ridiculous. Everybody agrees that they are corrupt beyond belief, basically. And then the third thing that has come out today, and Jamal, this is somewhat breaking news because it only broke in the last hour. It appears that there's a whistleblower within the IRS.
Okay, this is something new, actually. This is just like
Within the last hour.
last hour.
Yeah, apparently, and we're just getting the details now, that there's somebody working at the IRS who's now attempting to make or who has already made an official whistleblower complaint saying that the White House, the executive branch, has basically interfered with the standard audits of the president, Donald Trump, and the vice president, Mike Pence.
I think this is,
It's big.
to me, is bigger than the other whistleblowers because, and I'm looking at this, you're right, this is today, and there is a big an article in the Washington Post, and this is the IRS official has filed a whistleblower complaint reporting that he was told at least one Treasury Department political appointee attempted to improperly interfere with the annual audit of the president or vice president's tax return, according to multiple people familiar with the document. So,
This is a big deal.
Someone is playing interference inside the IRS. That's
right.
unprecedented, really.
Yeah. So we really have, Jamal, three very powerful examples of abuses of power, which is at the basis for the House of Representatives, led by Jerry Nadler, led by Adam Schiff, led by Nancy Pelosi, to initiate a impeachment process. They haven't voted on it yet, but what they're doing now is there's a formal process to investigate the president to see if, in fact, it rises to an impeachment. And they say that they're going to vote on this before the end of the year, at which point it goes to the Senate. The Senate becomes essentially a jury trial. The judge is the Chief Justice Roberts. The 100 senators becomes the jury. There's a trial, and you need 67 to convict and remove a president if there is a formal impeachment that has been voted on by the House. Here's the thing, Jamal. This is probably just the tip of the iceberg. And, you know, I said this is someone like an injured animal, you know, who feels cornered. They get rabid. It kind of relates to what you said, in that you believe that he may become unhinged in some way. Well, if you believe that Donald Trump is of that kind of psychological makeup, which some people have said is like people who are very narcissistic, very full of themselves. You've used the word king-like. It's basically all the same. When those individuals feel like they get cornered, they get vicious. They go out on the attack. And even though Donald Trump has made hundreds of, you know, horrible attacks on women, on people of color, on his opposition, on the media, everybody, immigrants, Muslims, you know, you pick, you know, name it, this seems significantly, you know, the ante has been upped significantly in terms of his viciousness.
Well, I mean, members of the media, or at least the ones who covered the Watergate,
yes,
they actually have been saying that these impeachments are worse than it will make it. They'll make Richard Nixon look like an angel compared to Donald Trump. But yet, here is the question, Jess. The question is, why actually nothing is technically, I mean, I was saying sticking. I mean, we used to refer to Ronald Reagan as the Teflon President,
right?
But he is the real Teflon President. I mean, we're not talking about one accusation. Whether we go back to the sexual harassment, then we're the issue with China, then the Ukraine, and others. And nothing is really affecting.
Well, I think there's two things that go into why Donald Trump is the real Teflon president. I think first and foremost is Fox News and the social media apparatus that supports Fox and Trump's base. Every time the Democrats come out and kind of allege something, in the service of, say, an abuse of power, you have the full force of the social media networks of Fox News and their surrogates, and all of the Trump surrogates go on, the Roy Cohn technique: admit nothing, deny everything, and attack your accuser. So this is the technique that they use. 2, you have the bully pulpit of the president. He gets covered no matter how crazy.
And we have to say he has used social media
Like a charm.
Very effective.
Like a charm. And we know that his base is just immovable, Jamal. The base is immovable. The 35% of the people, even though they may be economically disadvantaged by Trump, don't care. Because really the Trump base doesn't care about the economy tanking, and it looks like we're going to hit a recession, as I predicted, last year. What it looks like is that they care about are the social issues. They care about the judges that he's appointing at the federal level, the Supreme Court justices, the culture war that he's engaging in right now to demonize people of color, to demonize immigrants. His base, they love it, Jamal. And they have white grievance, and they get energized when they see Trump do this stuff. So that's where we're at. That's why he's Teflon. His numbers don't move.
Well, obviously, we're going to keep talking about it.
But I want to say one more thing.
But every week we're going to have a new story to tell, because I can't just remember a week passing by
where we don't,
without having a scandal or something. I mean, this is going to consume us all the way to the elections.
Well, I said something to you before the show which you thought was pretty outrageous, so I'm going to share it with the audience, which is, even if Trump loses the election, I don't think he's going to leave.
I think some people are saying this. I can't imagine it
because
he actually he retweeted, remember, the Civil War.
That's what I mean.
Of a civil war from
Listen, can I share with you?
Evangelist.
Right.
And people were like, "Oh my God, this is actually impeachable alone. This just that the president of the United States is talking about a civil war."
Let me give.
But what scenario can play out?
He'll declare a national emergency.
Yeah, it sounds like the Middle East.
It sounds like Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, MBS.
Okay.
He will declare, because the scenario that unfortunately crossed my mind, because the only way he could get around this is by declaring a national emergency. He could put the elections on hold if he thinks he's going to lose. And because this is really the bigger issue, Jamal, which we haven't talked much about, there is another group to blame for all of the mess that we're in right now. And the group, I think, that bears a lot of responsibility is the failure of the Congress to put its big boy pants on or big girl pants on and to act as a co-equal branch of government to hold the executive accountable.
Well, it's totally split. The Congress is totally split.
Yeah, but I
mean, we can see it.
Yeah, but I think that one of the reasons we are where we are right now.
And the GOP, they're running scared.
Exactly.
They're running scared
I agree.
from
So
Donald Trump, really.
I blame the Congress in part for being so ineffectual in being a co-equal branch.
I want to switch gears first.
Where are we going to go?
You are listening to Arab Talk on KPOO San Francisco 89.5 FM. I want to switch gears to this recent story. Maybe it hasn't made headlines or a wave, and take us to the and we're not going to talk about the Israeli elections. We're going to talk about the Israeli Hasbara, because there was like a small story.
This is not a small story.
And maybe it's not.
It's not.
And I've actually, I'm not an expert on the Demi Lovato
story. This is
singer,
important.
because I'm not a fan. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe you know more. But I've noticed this pretty famous singer.
She's well known.
And she's had issues recently. Right, she's had her own issues.
She's had a lot of issues.
But all of a sudden, she has been making headlines because of a Hasbara tour. She was invited to a free trip to Israel,
But why
not
is that?
thinking of the social consequences, and then she came to the attention, of course, of the BDS movement and calls from like famous
The Pink Floyd.
Floyd and
yeah.
others telling her,
Roger
hey,
Waters.
Roger Waters, don't be taken advantage of. And then she pled innocence, like, I don't know, they invited me. And then later on, because I think she was even, in my opinion, I think she was very innocent, because she even said, she admitted that she got paid $150,000.
Wait a minute, Jamal. Wait a minute. They paid her $150,000?
She got paid $150,000, not to perform, just to travel to the country and visit like the Wailing Wall.
Oh, for photo ops.
And taking some photo ops. And then she came under a
Unbelievable.
heavy attack. And then later on, she said, I'm sorry. She has 74 million followers, I think, on Facebook or on
Twitter or Instagram.
No, actually, 74 million on Instagram. She had followers, and she apologized. She said, "I didn't know that this is going to create this ruckus, and that it's going to hurt a lot of people. And people have been trying to educate her about like why she shouldn't be going, like pausing in and avoiding to go visit Palestinians, for example." In the West Bank or in East Jerusalem, and bypassing,
So
villages and towns.
So it's kind of interesting, Jamal. You're bringing up a lot of really important points. It's interesting how the Israeli government picks a celebrity who is really vulnerable, because, Demi Lovato in this last year and a half has really had a hard time.
See, I have to hand it to you because I actually knew nothing about her.
Well, she's been having a hard time. She was in rehab. She's been having some emotional and mental health issues. There are rumors that she became suicidal for a while, maybe did an overdose, but she had to be out of basically the social media limelight for approximately 6 months. Only recently has Demi Lovato basically come back on the social media scene. And isn't it interesting, as someone who went to the depths of darkness in her emotional life, finally coming up for air and kind of getting her life together, that the state of Israel comes along to try to help this poor young woman by giving her
rebuilding her career.
Right.
Well, my question is, we understand Israel is engaged in Hasbara. They fly congressmen and senators on junket tours, all paid. But this is the first time, that someone who is not invited to perform
admitted
is paid not only a free trip, but they're paid $150,000.
No, I'll differ with you, Jamal. This is the first time someone admitted
to
being paid.
Yeah, if you, as a celebrity, you travel to Paris to visit Paris, does the French government pay you $150,000?
I don't think so. I
think you'll be spending the $150,000 to stay in the fancy hotels and eat in the, But this is not only that you have a free trip, you're getting paid $150,000 to actually take few pictures at the Wailing Wall and go to Tel Aviv and show that Israel is such a loving, democratic, and happy society.
That's exactly right, Jamal. I just think it's really disgusting, as usual. But
I feel she's a victim, in fact.
Well, yeah, but it's disgusting that they would take advantage of someone who's vulnerable, who's had a really difficult time this last couple of years, who she probably heard. I don't know if I feel the same way you do that she's a victim.
Well, in her defense, because I'm reading from her statement, that she posted out there, said, "I'm extremely frustrated. I accepted a free trip to Israel in exchange for a few posts," meaning like few posts. She's using her power of 74 million followers on Instagram. No one told me there would be anything wrong with going, or that I could possibly be offending anyone. With that being said, I'm sorry if I've hurt or offended anyone. That was not my intention.
That's BS, Jamal. And I'm sorry. When you get stopped, Jamal, and are given a speeding ticket for going 80 in a 65, do you tell the officer that you didn't know?
I do believe, I'm not trying to
She's
give
an
her
adult.
a free pass here, but I
No
think,
free pass.
Yeah, but these celebrities, some of them, especially a young woman like her, they live in their own bubble. And trust me, if you asked her before that trip, where is Palestine on a map, or where is Bethlehem on a map, or where is Jerusalem on a map, she wouldn't know. So they come.
Shame on her then.
They come after she was feeling vulnerable and weak, out of a rehab, and say, free trip, 150K.
Will help your career.
And will help your career. You'll come back again as a star, back on top in Hollywood. That's what happened.
That's exactly what happened, and I'm sorry. Shame on you, Demi.
No.
I'm sorry. I don't buy it, Jamal.
I'll take her apology.
Okay. Well, what about her You failed to say something about her statement, how she has a connection in her family to Judaism.
That's actually through marriage of stepfathers. I don't know. I don't have the details. But when she came under attack, she was in shock because she thought. Actually, they lied to her because I blame. You know who you blame? You blame her agent, right? Her handlers. Her agent, who got paid a lot of money. I'm sure we're not even talking about
20%.
To not even, but he might have gotten. Or
more.
He or she received something on the side, so they can use her celebrity, her fame, her name recognition, her Instagram account of 70 million plus followers.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she's getting all these tweets and texts and people telling her, why are you doing this? She's getting contacted by famous people.
Okay, there's maybe...
And then now she's feeling guilty.
Okay. So here's my statement to Miss Lovato. If you're feeling a little guilty, if you're feeling a little bad, if you genuinely believe that you're sorry to your fans for what you did, do me a favor. Read your history. Read a book called The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. Read a little bit about the history. Read about the fact that Israel is a colonizing, colonial, illegal enterprise that is illegally stealing indigenous people's land, is refusing to let Palestinians return to their homelands, and continues to build illegal settlements on stolen Palestinian land. Read about it, see what the rest of the world thinks, and then issue a statement that is a real apology. An apology is, I'm sorry I didn't know, is not enough. To say I'm apologizing because I went to a racist apartheid state, that's a legitimate apology. And at that point, I may, buy some of your music if you ever.
You may. I'm not.
I'm not. I just don't. But Jamal, I just don't buy the. I'm
not into the pop music.
I just don't buy this. Oh, I didn't know this kind of thing. You do your research, you do your homework. You don't just do these things blindly. And probably the worst thing I think is I blame the Israeli government for preying on a vulnerable person.
Yes.
And this idea, we're going to pay you $100,000 basically to use your Instagram.
But I call it failed hasbara.
Failed hasbara.
So it's failed hasbara. We're running out of time. We have a few minutes. There's another story I wanted to bring to our discussion, but I'll just give a quick update.
What is it?
Your favorite topic. Of course, he's no longer here. Jeffrey Epstein. There was a big story about Jeffrey Epstein again. Like he died, right? And then he's still in the news.
Of course.
So a new big story in the New York Times about Jeffrey Epstein, that he racked in $200 million after legal and financial crisis. So this is a new story today.
Okay.
But basically, the story says,
he made money.
When Jeffrey Epstein, biggest client, deserted him, and he basically, his management, financial management company lost more than $150 million during the financial crisis, and then he was accused of, or was actually registered as a sex offender. This is back in 2012. He had a new startup called Southern Trust and reported more than $200 million in revenues over the next 5 years. according to a review of previously unreported financial statements filed in the Virgin Islands. So this is like a new story, kind of like,
Okay. I have
resurfacing.
Sure.
And saying like, all of a sudden, this guy's going almost from bankruptcy
To 200
to
million.
$200 million.
Can I leave you with a related story, Jamal? One of your favorite people in the whole world is publishing a new book right now. Alan Dershowitz has decided to publish a new book attacking the Me Too movement because he's working on a book right now.
Is he publishing the book while he's undressed or with his clothes on? Because he said when he was offered a massage at Epstein, he kept his clothes on.
Well, this is
I
part.
just want to know.
This is part of the whole thing because there's actually a lot of activity going on about releasing the names in this sealed document having to do with some of the people that were involved in this sex trafficking enterprise. And in the midst of this, Alan Dershowitz announces that he's working on a book attacking the Me Too movement. So stay tuned. That's going to be interesting. You're listening to Arab Talk on KPOO here in San Francisco, 89.5 FM. Check our website out, ArabTalkRadio.com, where you can check out all of our podcasts. Right, Jamal?
That's right. You go to our website, and we will talk to you next week.
See you next week.